This is the Owens Corning Ceiling Batt Insulation Module. This program will guide you through everything you need to know for professional installation of Owens Corning Batt insulation in ceilings. We will cover understanding ceiling types, the installation process for ceilings under attics, batts for attic floors, and cathedral ceilings, and best installation practices and techniques for each. There are a few important steps to insulating a ceiling properly. First, there are two basic types of ceilings that you will insulate: flat ceilings and cathedral ceilings. You should also understand that most of the energy leaking from a home is through the ceiling of the top floor, so it's especially important to do a great job of insulating here. Let's begin with flat ceilings under an attic. In new construction where attics are to be insulated with batts, you will typically install the insulation from below before the drywall is put up. But before you begin insulating, you'll have to protect the home's ventilation path. A home needs to be well ventilated so it can breathe out excess heat and moisture. Failing to allow for proper ventilation can result in moisture damage to the home's roof. To prevent this, you will start by installing baffles like these rafter mates in every eave space to prevent the vents from being blocked by the insulation. Once the rafter mates are in place, you can begin installing insulation. Simply push the batt straight up through the ceiling joist, then pull it back down so the batt fits evenly in the space and is flush with the bottom of the joist. It is important to install the batt properly so it recovers to the full label thickness and will deliver the full R value. If you are using faced batts, make sure the facing goes toward the inside or the warm in winter side of the house. Also be certain the insulation covers the top plate where the ceiling meets the wall below, and butt separate pieces of insulation snugly together so there are no gaps or spaces. If local regulations call for stapling of faced insulation, simply open the flange of the facing and staple it to the inside of the joist or the face of the stud every 8 to 12 inches. There usually will be some areas, next to a wall for example, with narrower than normal joist spacing, where you will need to cut the batt to fit. Cut the batt about 1 inch wider than the cavity to make certain the batt fills the space completely and installs easily. Lighting fixtures and other elements that produce heat call for special treatment. This is very important for fire safety. Install insulation at least 3 inches away from unrated recessed lighting fixtures. Depending on local building codes, you may need to baffle around these lighting fixtures as well. Just cut and fit the baffle material around the fixture, leaving at least 3 inches of space. Then fit the insulation snugly around the outside of the baffle, cutting the batt if necessary for a customized fit. Check each fixture carefully before you insulate around it. If the fixture has the letters IC on it, which stands for insulated ceiling, you can insulate right up to and above the fixture, making our job even easier. If you have to work around metal chimneys, gas water heater flues, or other elements that produce heat, give the insulation at least 1 inch of clearance, and around masonry chimneys or other areas that have small openings, stuff the space with pieces of unfaced insulation. You may also encounter other obstacles in flat ceilings, such as electrical wiring, junction boxes, and ventilation fans. If wiring protrudes into the cavity space, you'll have to cut or split the batt to fit around the wire. If the wire runs near the top of the joist, simply place your batt right over it. For junction boxes and fans, cut out a piece of the batt for a custom fit around the obstruction. Following these simple guidelines, you will have a flat ceiling insulated quickly and easily. The second attic option is to install batts or rolls in the attic itself. If you're working in the attic, be very careful as the drywall is thin and won't support your weight. It's often a good idea to place a sturdy piece of plywood across the joist to have a place to stand or kneel while you work. From up here, you'll place the faced side of the insulation down toward the warm living area of the room below. Follow the same guidelines you just learned for fitting insulation around lighting fixtures, heat sources, and other obstructions. Finally, before you leave the attic, insulate the back of the access cover by stapling or gluing a custom-cut piece of insulation to the back of the board. Let's move on to an increasingly popular ceiling style that doesn't have an attic above it, the cathedral ceiling. This peak design gives a room an open, spacious, airy feel, but it also has special insulation needs. For this lofty job, you'll need lots of safe, secure scaffolding. Rafters in cathedral ceilings are usually made of 2x10s or 2x12s. Owens Corning makes two types of pink fiberglass batts especially for these types of rafters. There's the 8 1/4 thick R30C for 2x10s and the 10 1/4 thick R38C for 2x12s. Before you begin insulating, install rafter-made baffles at the eave of every joist to make certain the vent space doesn't get blocked by the insulation. If multiple baffles are needed, install them 1 to 2 inches apart. Now, push the batts up between the rafters until they are flush with the rafter's edge. Do not push the batt up against the roof deck, as this would block the necessary airflow. R30C and R38C are designed to leave the standard 1-inch vent space when you install the batts flush with the face of the rafters. Be sure to butt separate batts tightly together, leaving no gaps between them. Make sure there is at least 1 inch of ventilation space between the entire batt and the roof deck for the full cavity run. Some local codes call for even more ventilation space, so check out the requirements in your area. If you're using something other than a cathedral batt, or if your local codes call for more than 1 inch of vent space, you will need to install baffles along the entire run of each rafter cavity. Where it is specified, a poly vapor retarder can be installed over unfaced batts. Stretch the poly over the rafters and staple it in place. Overlap separate pieces of poly 1 full rafter space and staple securely. For craft-faced R30C and R38C cathedral ceiling batts, face staple the flanges every 8 to 12 inches. Installing Owens Corning ceiling batts is really quite easy if you follow the guidelines we've given in this video. Our goal is the same as yours, to make you and your company true insulation professionals.